Welcome to the Interior Design Beat podcast, where you will hear candid commentary on various interior design subjects and topics, including the good, the bad, and the ugly, telling you like it really is. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Interior Design Beat podcast. I am your host, Interior Designer Steve Adamko, and I'm glad you're here to listen in and to join us, or join me. So I'm going to carry on with this third installment regarding the design process that I go through on every project that I get involved with. And when you go through a procedure that works and works flawlessly, you repeat it over and over again because you want the same high quality results again and again. So as I said before, everything is predicated on the client. The client is the pivot point for everything that I do. It's all about them. It's not about me, but it is about me in terms of being the expert tour guide, the expert that keeps them from getting in trouble, the expert that keeps them from making mistakes, the expert that helps them invest their money instead of merely spend their money. These are all very important attributes. And it all happens when you know the right questions to ask so that you get the right answers. And you keep asking the right questions to keep getting the right answers so that the client expounds on that more. If I need more involvement, more depth, and I want to dig deeper, which most of the time I want to dig deeper because that's where the riches are. That's where the diamonds are. That's where the treasure is. And then I can deliver the right results every time, all the time, smack dab in the center of the bullseye. I've been doing this for nearly 40 years. And the way I do it is that I do my work in such a way, do the discovery work in such a thorough manner, do my Sherlock Holmes discovery, and put myself in the shoes of the client and do the job with my expertise, plus any amount of engagement along the way with the client. And that's what makes for spectacular results, results that super exceed their expectations and taps into not only the look, but the feel, the emotion, and the ambience of the environment wrapped up in a big, huge, wonderful bow just for them. It's my gift to them for them working with me. Nobody's ever been disappointed. I do one presentation. That's all I need to do. I don't need to do 2 or 3 or this version and that version. Only amateurs do that. When you do your preparation work up front and you do it thoroughly, you only have to write one symphony. And as I've said before, the 6 P's are prior, proper, preparation prevents poor performance. I've done it every time, all the time, no exceptions. I'm extremely accurate in delivering the precise look, feeling, emotion, and ambiance all the time, whether it's residential or commercial. It doesn't matter. It's the same procedure that I use, delivering the same high quality Rolls-Royce interiors. The same high quality Rolls-Royce interiors. Now, part of that is indicative of budget and money invested because you can't get Rolls-Royce at a Chevy Malibu price, okay? But it's the attention to detail, whether it's a lower budget job or a very high budget job. it's still the same attention to detail. So I do it the same way for every client, no matter how much money they have to spend. Now, I will be honest with you in that you have to spend at least a minimum to get in the door. I mean, there's a minimum of everything, and then you can max out to the galaxies if you want to. But there's always got to be a minimum standard met, a minimum budget that's reasonable for every job. Nobody, including myself, could do a job without adequate funds and money to do the job properly. And most clients don't understand that aspect, in the fact that they really don't know what real quality costs. Because what have they been exposed to? Not much. What, furniture stores around? No, man, that's just scratching the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. So anyway, I get involved in the jobs that are exciting, and I get involved where there's definitively mutual respect. I like the idea of going where you're celebrated, not tolerated. Okay? It's the only way I fly. It's the only way I go. I don't do ugly. I don't do average. And I sure the heck don't do mediocre. I'm in the business to do interior design like writing a phenomenal symphony, which is really what it's all about. And it's so much like music, it's unbelievable. So when we get everything together and the floor plan is drawn up, those shapes are squares, rectangles, circles, and any other shape that we would draw to indicate the shape of the piece, the furniture, the case goods, the sofa, the chair, what have you. But those are just shapes on a floor plan, which is incredibly important. If you don't have a well-working, well-balanced floor plan, forget about rising to the heights of the gold medal category. You will never make it. Promise you that. So with every given shape on the floor plan, now it's like, okay, what style is it? What shape is it in 3D? Is it rectilinear? Is it curvilinear? Is it a combination of straight and curved lines? What are the proportions? What are the elements that keep it graceful and not clunky or clumsy looking? This all has to do with the shape of the piece, like the chair, how the legs are shaped, how the back is shaped, the arms and everything. And there can be, and there is, elegance in some of the finest designs. And then you see knockoffs or wannabe furniture that has the kind of curves, but it's just clunky, clumsy, ugly. Okay? Don't deal with ugly stuff. There's a lot of knockoff furniture where it's actually, let me use this word, because they put different elements together, and if they don't have a feeling for shape, proportion, line, color, texture, and all that, it gets to be like a bastard piece of furniture. You know what I mean? It's just totally illegitimate, and people buy that kind of furniture, and then they wonder why it doesn't work. It looks clunky, clumsy. That's the worst thing you want to have happen in interior design. You want something graceful and elegant and wonderfully proportioned, and it doesn't have to mean that you're in the upper realms of elegance. It can be elegant and still be a hunting lodge. Okay? It can be very casual and rustic and be pulled off in an elegant manner. So there's elegance in everything that's designed at a high level with people who have an eye for shape, form, proportion, color, texture, and wonderful design. Not everybody can pull it off. That's obvious because there's a lot of ugly in the world. I mean, there's a lot of places and homes that started out maybe halfway decent and then never could get it. Just never had the power to get off the ground at all. It never took flight. Disappointing, but a lot of people think they can pull it off. It's like, no, it's too heavy too heavy to get airborne. And so you're never going to have a design that just flies and is wonderful and all that. So a lot of this comes down to balance. Everything in life is about balance. I'm talking about physical balance and visual balance. So it's hard to talk about this without giving a demonstration of what I mean. But I'm going to use analogies, which is one of the techniques that I use to get my point across and get it understood by people who don't quite understand my field of endeavor. Like, say, they're a doctor or they're a golfer or something, but they don't really know anything about interior design. That's my opportunity to put it right in their ballpark, so to speak, and use all kinds of analogies that they can immediately relate to what they do, whether it's golfing or whatever. I mean, one of the major things you have to do when you stand over the ball is you've got to address the ball properly. Your stance, club face, and everything like that. And it's more than just addressing the golf ball and saying, "Hi, Mr. Golf Ball. It's nice to meet you this fine morning here out on this wonderful green at this country club." Okay? There's a lot more to it than that. So it's your balance, it's your stance, it's your weight distribution, it's how you hold the club, it's your arms, your whole body is involved with that golf club in addressing that golf ball before you can even have a decent shot. But there's a lot of other things that go into it and is involved with it in terms of the whole dynamics of the backswing and then coming down and impacting the ball, and most importantly, the follow through. If you don't follow through, you are a lost ball in tall weeds, okay? And you're definitely in the rough. And the next club or specialty club you're going to have to pull out is a weed whacker, because you're going to need it. That's not where you wanted to be, was it? I thought you wanted to be in the fairway. That's where all the fun is, right? That's where the pros live, in the fairway most of the time. Once in a while they get in the rough, but they know how to get it out of the rough too. That's another key issue or ability, is to be able to get out of the rough and look elegant while you're doing it. Well, I never get in the rough anyway, so I never have to worry about it in my profession. Okay, so I'm going to use an analogy here, and I'm going to use the analogy of a waiter with a tray. And as you know, going to dinner at a fine restaurant, there's going to be a drink tray, an hors d'oeuvre tray, a dinner tray, and all that type of thing. So let's say we're dealing with a room that's 18 feet by 24 feet. And then let's draw an analogy with a tray that's 18 inches by 24 inches. And let's say that tray is balanced on a point right in the center. And what it's balanced on is maybe a 1-inch circle. That's it. So you're going to put things and glasses on that to balance it so it doesn't tip over. So you might have the same wine glasses balanced on the tray, or you might have some wine glasses with some other glasses for other types of drinks, like tumblers or whatever. It's probably the wrong word to use, tumbler, because we don't want to tumble. We don't want the tray to tip over. We don't want to lose everything that's on the tray. But let's just say, with all the things that are done in design, you've got all these different combinations, and they are relatively simple. It doesn't take a lot of complication to imagine. Let's say a sofa against the wall and then chairs on each side, okay? Or a fireplace with a sofa on the left side and a pair of chairs on the right side, or vice versa. Or you have a sofa and a cocktail table and 2 chairs across from the sofa. And then you've got 2 occasional chairs on each side of the sofa. So you've got all different types of combinations of sofas, or sofa and chairs, or sofas plural, or love seats, or what have you. All these different combinations and furniture arrangements within that 18-foot by 24-foot room. Now, let's just say that the wine glasses and the other drink glasses are furniture on the tray that's 18 inches by 24 inches. And then you'd have to balance those depending on how heavy the glass is or the wine glass, and then what you pour in it. How much does it hold? That has weight. Okay, so when we're talking about interior design, it's not weight as in physical weight, but visual weight. In other words, something that's more attractive or gets your attention or holds your attention is heavier than something that doesn't get your attention, which is lighter. Okay. So we want to create this balance on the tray that's indicative of a room that's well balanced. Because in reality, you want opposing walls and walls to balance each other, and then you want the side walls to balance each other. So let's pretend that the floor plan has walls, which in reality it does. You've got a floor, walls, and ceiling. Okay, so it's like this. You take the ceiling off, you cut the walls at each corner, and you fold the walls down. So you've got the floor plan on the table, and the walls are laying flat on the table too. So they're not up, they're folded down. So it's kind of like a heavy, wide cross, okay, because you've got the walls folded down from the floor plan. Those walls need to balance visually with the same kind of weight. And you've got lots of things that are working in there, like doors and windows, fireplace. Drapery treatments can affect how a window wall looks. You can do very simple, very elegant, very sculptural. And the more involved it is, the more visual draw power it has, or the visual weight. So imagine you've got a simple thing. And I want to use the tray because the tray is more like the floor of the room. A lot of times people will indicate balance by a teeter-totter. And that can work if you think of a teeter-totter as the boards and the fulcrum. So if you have two people who are the same weight, they're the same distance from the fulcrum, the center point. If there's a heavier person, that person's got to move closer while the lighter person has to move farther out. They're more cantilevered, so to speak. So the further out that lighter weight goes, the more heavy it gets in the physical realm. Now, if you take that teeter-totter and you spin it around 360 degrees like it was a propeller, so to speak, then you would be taking into consideration all the different angles of a circle that are 360. But I want to keep the tray analogy because it's more like the room in terms of shape. So let's just say that we take a couple wine glasses and we balance them on the tray. But let's just say we take those same glasses and then we fill them with white wine, both of them. Or we take the same wine glasses and we balance them and we fill them with red wine. Now, let me toss this in. Suppose this time we take one glass, balance it with another glass, and we fill one glass with white wine and the other with red wine. Now, the glasses weigh the same amount of wine is in there, so that hasn't changed, but your visual attraction is now moving from white or clear to red, because red is attractive. It draws attention. That's why Ferraris paint their cars red, Ferrari red. So now you're focused more on the red wine than the white wine, which is actually clear. So you're more focused on the red wine than the white wine or the clear. So you got red or clear. So in essence, if you're thinking about visual weight, you'd have to move the white wine further away from the fulcrum while the red wine is closer to the fulcrum. You see what I'm saying? So a strong spot of red can balance a large square of green. Okay, just a dot of red balances a square of green. because that red is not only attractive in terms of its draw power. I mean, my gosh, think of red lipstick. Why do most women wear red lipstick? There is no other color typically. I mean, there are other variations on it, but typically it's red lipstick. You ask yourself why? Well, it has draw power. It has pucker power, so to speak. It's got, it's attractive. So anyway, you've got all these things that are vying for attention. So let's just say we've got sofas, we've got chairs, we've got fully upholstered chairs, we've got armchairs with upholstered seats. And so you've got all these different things, and let's just say they're all upholstered in white, or they would say normally muslin, like a simple cover. But what if we start putting a really bold fabric pattern and color on the sofa and nothing on the upholstered chairs and nothing on the side chairs with the upholstered seats? Now that's really going to draw. Or we could take the sofa and keep that neutral and then really punch out the chairs that are fully upholstered and then really punch out the smaller side chairs with the upholstered cushions. It's kind of like a rule, but it's not a rule. When you know how to orchestrate things, you don't go by rules so much. You know the rules, but you know the rules so well that you know how to break them without messing things up and turning it into a disaster. Okay? So everybody's got to know the laws or the rules before you can break them. The Wright brothers had to do that. They had to work with known laws before they could supersede them. So when you keep it simple, like 2 or 3 or 4 pieces of furniture, that's just like simple music, simple math in a sense. And you can make that even more complicated. But when you start adding 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 pieces in an environment, sofas, chairs, toss pillows, lamps, ottomans, benches, cocktail tables, end tables, bookcases, etagères, all these types of things in different heights and widths and lengths, then you're compounding it increasingly all the time, getting more and more complicated. So there's more and more to deal with, which takes more and more expertise in order to handle it, while at the same time, throughout the process, controlling every step. Okay, because a lot of people can start to get so far and then they really start to have troubles. Or it's matchy-matchy, which sometimes is too tight, to paint by number, versus orchestrating the colors with the different attributes of color like hue, color, value, how dark or light the colors are, and intensity, how dull or brilliant they are. So when you start moving with all that, and it's not like a wall of switches that you switch on and off. No, it's a row of rheostats that you have to know how to give each one the right kind of brilliance or subdue part of it in order to bring it into the balance and say what you want it to say. See, the whole thing is you've got to be able to control it to say what you want it to say instead of having a room that, what's this room say? What does it mean? What's it supposed to do, if anything? Or the room actually is like a person who mumbles all the time, doesn't talk with any clarity, isn't articulate with the speech. You see, that's another analogy. All these things are part and parcel of what makes good design. So the overall balance of everything is so necessary. And you've got to know how to adjust every little thing. It's kind of like adjusting all the different ingredients in some wonderful, complicated food or Italian meal. I mean, everything, the spices and how much and what kind of tomatoes and what kind of cheese and how strong or mild the cheese is, and all the different attributes of different cheeses in order to put together to add this layered, multi-layered incredibly rich lasagna. You see what I'm saying? It's got to be way more than Chef Boyardee, let me tell you. So, in essence, what I'm saying is you've got to be really masterful to really pull this off. And if you're not, you definitely need help by the person who is masterful. But you've got to know somehow that they really are, because most people still have a hard time deciding and figuring out if they're masterful or not. Some of them are convinced that they are, and then they realize that something is wrong. And I ran into someone and got into a great conversation at a farmer's market outside, and she brought up something. She talked about wanting to do a house, and I told her about, how I work and why what I do and how I do it is so critically important to getting the end result, that we invest their money properly to get the best results. And she made a statement that I thought, wow, that is spot on. She said this: you don't know what you don't know until it's too late. Wow, that is a killer statement right there. And it's true. It's absolutely true. Many people just don't realize that they don't know what they need to know. And Clint Eastwood is saying to them, hey, are you feeling lucky? Because that's what you're going to need, lucky. But you know what? The real pros, they don't go by luck. They go by skill, talent, ability, expertise, talent, wisdom, knowledge, insight. That's what it takes. You're going to be spending a lot of money and thousands of dollars. That's what you need. Don't go for average. Don't go for mediocre. I don't care if your friends or relatives said, oh, they're fabulous and wonderful. Like I said before in another podcast, one high-end corporate attorney hired a designer, a female designer, on the recommendation of the builder. And the builder said she's fantastic and marvelous and great to work with and da-da-da-da-da. But when it was all done, when it was all said and done, and he asked me to come over and check out the place and see if maybe anything could be done. He said, the builder said she was all this and marvelous and fantastic, but he said to me, and I'll never forget it, he says, Steve, except he never told me that her work sucked. Wow. That's to the point. And so he didn't know what he didn't know until it was too late, because he trusted somebody thinking that, oh, the builder surely knows. Well, there's a lot of builders that don't know enough, and they're dangerous, okay? They don't know how to lay out a room right. They don't know how to do a floor plan right, or there's architects that don't know how to do really good floor plans, because you've got to start with the client and how they live and the furniture and work it backwards. You just can't draw boxes and stick them together and then say, figure out how to furnish it. Because then sometimes, like, oh my gosh, too bad that door's in the wrong place. Too bad that window is too big. Too bad there's no place to put the furniture. Too bad the walls aren't big enough. Too bad the sills are too low. Too bad who knows? A lot of different things can happen. A lot of things that happen, say with our room, which is 18 feet by 24 feet, you can put in different openings and windows and fireplaces and switch up the locations, and it can drastically change what you can and cannot do with that room. Okay? So this is really, really critical stuff, folks. Really critical. Nothing you want to mess around with. So sometimes you got the blind leading the blind, or sometimes you got the half blind leading the blind. Okay? Just because they're a builder doesn't mean squat. Just because they're an architect doesn't mean squat either. I've seen some architects do terrible stuff. Matter of fact, I've led architects because they were on their way to screwing up the whole job. In other words, rooms are made for people, folks, and furniture is made for people. It's meant to be for people from the beginning to the end. I don't care if your house looks fantastically marvelous from the outside. If it isn't designed properly on the inside, well, I guess you kind of got sold a bill of goods, didn't you? I've seen large homes, huge amount of square footage that because of the way things were allocated or columns put here or there, obviously you got to put columns where they're going to bear the load. But sometimes the way it's laid out, and then you try to space plan it with furniture. And I've seen it where huge home, and then once you get down to adequately space planning it for people and how they live, sometimes it's no better than a glorified apartment. I mean, you're down to like minimal square footage, and you've got all this unused, wasteful square footage that you're paying an arm and a leg for. That's why I say sometimes it's better to have a smaller house that's well designed and well laid out than a big mansion that is terribly laid out, and then you can't do much with it. And then, because balance has got to be there in the architecture, whether it's symmetrical or asymmetrical. But nonetheless, balance is balance. You got to start with balance from the get-go, and you've got to finish up balance too. Okay? Like a guy that's walking a tight rope, like the famous Wallinda family. You got to start your walk balanced, and you better end it up balanced, okay? Or you're going to be in a disastrous situation. Okay, so it takes wisdom, and it takes knowledge, and it takes sometimes breaking your predetermined way you look at things. Maybe you're not looking at things properly. Maybe you've been told something that wasn't true. Because the saying goes, your perception is your reality. But what if your perception is not right? Then your reality isn't right. It's wrong. And you better fix it right away. Or you better call somebody who knows what they're doing. Like me. Because I approach it architecturally and from an interior design point of view. I'm involved with every little aspect. And I'm really good at it. Form, shape, proportion, color, texture. That's why I can design from scratch. Custom furniture, lighting design. That's why I can deliver the look, plus the feeling, plus the emotion, plus the ambiance. I mean, even when you go to a restaurant, if it's going to be a big deal, you don't want it to just look nice. You want it to have some ambiance. That's why you want to have a memorable experience. So you should be having that every day in your own home, for crying out loud. Okay? There's no excuse not to, unless you hire the wrong people and you think they're great. But if somebody who's really knows what they're doing and is really, really great says, oops, you thought they were great, but you know what? They're really average and mediocre. Did you know that? Oh, I didn't really know that. Really? Well, you should ask a few questions. And not lean always to what somebody says that, oh, they're wonderful and they're magnificent, when the case in point, the commercial attorney had a bad end product. Not good. Not good. I don't think that's very wise. And if you got lots of money to waste and throw around, like leaves on the lawn, well, then go ahead. Okay, go ahead and do it. But most people I know, the smart, wealthy ones, they don't do that. They want their money invested. And even if they have to spend more, like 2 or 3 times more, they're still getting value. I mean, we can even blow the budget in some cases, and they're still fantastically happy because they say, wow, we didn't realize we had to spend that much to get what we wanted, but what we got is exactly what we wanted and more. And if we had to pay more to get it, then so be it, because we love it. Okay? Use the L'Oreal principle, and I'm worth it. Yeah, you are. Okay? But make sure you do it right once the first time. You don't need to be doing this 2 times over. Okay? Like a lot of people, they start out and then they redline. They get to the point where it's beyond their capabilities. And like Clint Eastwood says, a man or woman's got to know their limitations. And like I say, if that designer is already redlining their limitations and you don't know it, you better be feeling lucky, because things are about ready to fall. And you're not going to be happy. Okay? You want to be happy. Okay? And it's really only money. Okay? I mean, you could be try to cheap out on it and be incredibly unhappy and super frustrated. Is that worth it to you? Hey, honey, let's go out to have a frustrated, super hard time. No, I don't think so. You're out there to have fun and enjoy it. incredibly. Okay. Well, anyway, balance is everything. Okay. So take this to heart. This is nothing to mess around with. Trust me. I don't care how much money you have. Doesn't matter. The same principles hold because what it is, it's founded on wisdom. And wisdom is knowing how to use knowledge correctly. But the first thing you got to do is get some knowledge. But if you don't have it, if you don't have the skill and the knowledge and the expertise and the wisdom, then you hire someone who does, like me. All right? So aim high and you'll get there the way you need to be. But don't scrimp. There's certain things that you can definitively scrimp on and save on without diminishing the quality and the presentation and the feeling and the ambiance and all that. But there's a limit to it, okay? You just can't do anything you want. There's certain minimum requirements if you want to hit at certain levels, especially in the Rolls-Royce category. But I like to use that for an analogy. If it's Ferrari works for you, then Ferrari. If Lamborghini works for you, whatever. But there's certain things and expertise and, amazing things that go into making a Rolls Royce. So just use that for an analogy. Okay. You can par it down if you want to. Nothing wrong with that. But start high, aim high. Okay. All the time. Never aim low. Aim higher than what you feel like you need to, because if you miss for some reason, maybe you get somebody who's not as good, at least you won't fall so far. Okay? So anyway, boy, there's a lot more I could say. Wow, there's a lot more I could talk about. But when I come out with the courses, I'll be able to go into depth with all that. But hey, the courses, you have to pay for those, and they're not going to be cheap because I'm giving you, or whoever takes those courses, everything I've got to be phenomenal, because there's a lot of courses out there that are put out by famous people, famous designers that really aren't that good. Why? Because they might be able to do what they do in their realm or their look or their feel or their genre, but you know what? They're not very good teachers. So if you don't have a good teacher, what's it worth? Nothing. But if you can do it and teach it like I can, oh, baby, now we're hitting on all cylinders. Now we got a 12-cylinder turbocharged Bugatti Veyron. Okay? That's what we got. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Leave it at the high-powered level. You'll never be not satisfied by going more. It's only when you go less that you're supremely disappointed. And that's the time when you say, I could have had a V8. Yeah, you could have. Why didn't you choose that? Why'd you choose to go cheap? Cheaping out never gets anybody anywhere other than a real bad feeling. Okay, but you don't want that. So push it. Have the guts to go more. Have the guts to spend more. Have the guts to put yourself in the hands of a real expert. Okay? No place to wimp out here ever. All right? So these are strong words, and I guess I have to say it this way: to him who has ears, or whoever has ears, let him hear. Okay? Because you won't be disappointed. I promise you that. Okay, well, I think it's time to button this podcast up. And I think that kind of wraps it up for the methodology and the thought process that goes into this, to creating wonderful, enriching, fabulous interiors that just are in the realm of elation. Like over the moon, phenomenal, marvelous. Yes. That's what we want. We want to abide in that, because wow, that's living every day in, as they would say, living the dream. Okay? Not dreaming the dream, it's living the dream. Because you made it, because you did what you needed to do. And it's always better to go above and beyond than to settle for. Okay? We don't settle for anything. It's very important. It's your abode. It's where you live. It's important that you have an environment that is totally enveloping and supportive and undergirds you throughout life. Okay? We all need that. Okay, everyone. I hope you have a great, fantastic day today. I hope this has supercharged your imagination and got you all fired up, okay? Because I'm fired up. I love to be fired up. I love enthusiasm, and that's so important. And having that sense of fulfillment in your environment is really, really phenomenal, and it's so super enriching. So, anyway, all right, everyone. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.